Mechas have fascinated us ever since our childhood. There's just something about the allure of giant, futuristic robots that can be controlled from within, and that fascination never leaves us well into our adult lives. For most mech fans, all roads eventually lead to Gundam. This massive spacefaring saga continues to be the torchbearer for this genre even 45 years after its first offering. Mobile Suit Gundam. It pioneered the real robot subgenre, which moved away from the oversaturated and stale super robot subgenre and revitalized mechas as a whole. Unlike its gaudy predecessors within the real robot genre, emphasis was laid on being more grounded in reality regarding the technologies used in the series, even if it was fiction. While the Gundam series has moved well past the universal century of the original series, we've gotten a few shows based on that era over the years. The latest being Gundam Requiem for Revenge. This show is based on the final days of the iconic One-Year War, which is probably the most important war in all of Gundam. The show tries to give us a Mobile Suit Gundam the 8th MS Team type of story, but this time, instead of following the story of Earth Federation warriors, we're shown the war through the eyes of the Principality of Zeon soldiers. For those without any context of the One-Year War or the story of the original Gundam, it can be misleading as it presents the Principality as the good guys of the story. We have to give the show credit as it does a stellar job of humanizing the people who, for the most part, are thought of as the bad guys over the years, showing the fact that both sides of the war have ordinary soldiers who aren't inherently evil as they're made out to be. The show is being created using the Unreal Engine 5 under Bandai Namco and Safehouse Inc. It has a total of 6 episodes and was announced during the Anime Expo 2023 in LA. It's currently airing on Netflix. In today's video, we'll be discussing the first protagonist of a Mobile Suit Gundam series from the Universal Century era who isn't a member of the Earth Federation. The character in focus for today is the squadron leader of a Zaku Mobile Suit unit of the Principality of Zeon forces named Iria Sorari. We'll be doing a deep dive into her character and letting you know all that there is to know about her, from her personality, appearance, background, and mobile suit, and we shall leave no stone unturned. So, step in as we dive into humanity's war-torn future, where the lines between good and evil are blurred beyond recognition. What is the background of Iria Sorari? Before becoming a soldier in the Space Force of the Principality of Zeon, Iria Sorari was a violinist who played in a renowned philharmonic with her husband. Her family comprised of her son and husband. Unfortunately, her husband was killed, judging by the timeline around the events of Operation Desert Dragon, which was the start of Earth Federation's resurgence in the war on the back of the Gundams and the GMs. We know from her own words that her son was being kept safe by her relatives in one of the space colonies, probably under the Principality. She and her family resided in one of these space colonies, known as Sides. Iria is an ace pilot and holds the rank of captain within the army. She and her squadron, the Red Wolves, are shown to be pretty renowned amongst the troops. We're told that she was present in the Battle of Loom, where, like many other mobile suit pilots like Shah Aznable, Shin Matsunaga, and Johnny Ridden, she too made a name for herself. This was the coming out party for mobile suits as their true destructive prowess was laid bare for all to see. The Battle of Loom was meant to drop Side 5 as a colony bomb in a repeat of the tragedy and horror of the one-week battle where Island Ifish was dropped on Sydney, causing massive losses. We don't know what role she had to play in Loom to ensure that this tragedy was recreated, but fortunately it had never come to pass, as the Earth Federation forces would defend valiantly despite suffering heavy losses. The battle would be won by the forces of Zeon, but Side 5 would be completely destroyed, along with many inhabitants. It'd result in the signing of the Antarctic Treaty, which would tilt the war in the favor of the Principality. What's the personality and motivations of Iria? Iria is introduced to us as an upstanding officer in the Zeon army. She's shown to be a stickler for rules and the chain of command, chastising her crew for speaking up when their superior officer tries to take credit away from them for their work. Despite this, she seems to be extremely caring and thinks of her crew as family. In turn, they respect her and hold her in the highest regard, as they've been in numerous battles under her, always coming out on top. Her affection toward her squadron mates is further highlighted when they're killed by the Gundam one by one. She blames herself for their death and shoulders a heavy burden for what happened to them. While initially driven by vengeance, she shows remarkable practicality when dealing with missions. As seen during the infiltration of the Earth Federation base, she maintains a cool and calm demeanor, choosing the correct path despite knowing her friend Alfie is in danger as their cover is blown. In the final episode, when the leader of the Midnighter squad wants to rush the Gundam to kill his squadmate, it's Iria who stops him from charging to his death. In essence, she's a perfect soldier who's not just skilled in combat, but also a master tactician with a cool head. The other side of Iria, which we only get to see later, is her motherly side. While most of her comrades are motivated by the propaganda fed to them by their leaders about the Earth Federation's oppression of the space noids, she simply wants to return home alive for her son's sake. We're shown that everything she does is in order to survive, and while her motivations for joining the army might have been different, now, as a grizzled vet, all she wanted was to return home, especially since they were losing the war. Despite this, in the end, she still puts duty above all else and decides to step into her mobile suit to defend the departing spacecrafts of the retreating Zion forces. Her sense of honor, morality, and all the other emotions and motivations do a great job in humanizing the soldiers of Zion as a whole. What's her appearance and equipment? Iria Sorari is a Caucasian female of Spacenoid heritage in her early 30s who's considered to be a new type, which we'll discuss later. She wears the standard issue Principality of Zion wingsuit of that era. It comes with a life support system and helmet that controls the body temperature of the pilot both within the cockpit and in outer space. It has a chest plate that serves both as armor and a system to monitor her vitals. She has a rappelling anchor on her back for her to climb into her mobile suit. On her waist is a utility belt with a pouch to keep things such as stun grenades or other essentials. There's a thigh holster where her sidearm is kept. The suit also comes with a knee guard and boots, which are all attached to it. On a more personal note, Iria is fairly tall, standing around 5 feet 8 inches in height, and is fairly lean and muscular. She has an auburn hair color, which she cut short, unlike during her civilian days when her hair was long and flowy. Her appearance and stature exude an aura that commands respect from her subordinates. What is her mobile suit? Iria pilots the mass-produced Principality of Zion mobile suits called MS-06F Saku 2 F-Type. This is a variant of the mass-produced MS-06 Saku 2 mobile suit during the one-year war by the Principality of Zion. It's the workhorse that revolutionized the battlefield and turned the initial tide of the war vastly in favor of the Principality, earning them one victory after another. It could run at a speed of around 85 kilometers per hour and leap close to 100 meters into the air. It came equipped with a shoulder shield capable of deflecting and blocking most things that the Earth Federation had within their arsenal, making them invincible and unstoppable juggernauts. The Zaku's primary weapon was a 120mm machine gun, which required no energy source to fire, unlike the Gundam's beam rifle. Each drum magazine contained about 100 rounds, with spare drums being stored by the Zaku around its waist. It also carried a 280mm bazooka, which fired explosive shells capable of damaging armored units. When not in use, the bazooka could be stored on the waist mount on the mobile suit back. It could also swap the 120mm machine gun for a 90mm machine gun, which was fed by a 32-round magazine. The firing rate of this weapon was higher than its 120mm counterpart, along with it being much more capable of piercing through armor. For melee combat, the MS-06F Saku 2 relied on the Heat Hawk Type 5, which was an axe-shaped weapon with a superheated blade. It utilized the thermonuclear energy generated by the Zaku's reactor to heat the blade. It was capable of cutting through most armor that the Earth Federation possessed. It also had some leg-mounted 3-tube missile pods. The Zaku 2 could also be equipped with other attachments like the Sturmfaust, a disposable rocket launcher, the Sea Serpent, a wired grappling weapon that could be used to send crippling electrical currents to its target, an armed machine gun, and several B6 cracker grenades, which were basically large frag grenades. The MS-06F Saku 2 first saw deployment during the Battle of Loom, which is why it makes sense that Iria and her squadron were able to command them. Since Iria's machine was a Captain-class mobile suit, it had a longer antenna than usual to identify itself and to be able to give commands more effectively. Its legs are painted to appear as claws, since its call sign is the Red Wolf. The squadron's symbol is also painted on the shoulder of the machine, and it's nicknamed Red Wolf Alpha after its operator's call sign. What is a new type? What does it mean for Iria to be one? New type was a word coined by the original founder of the Principality of Zion, Zion Deacon. He believed that the Earth's gravity had long fettered humanity's true potential, and now with the mass exodus of mankind throughout space and the loss of these limitations, humanity had begun evolving further. In order to adapt to life in space, Spacenoids had begun reaching the next step of evolution, granting them abilities that would be far greater than that of regular human beings. Their abilities manifest in various ways, but a new type generally is stronger, faster, and more intelligent than the average person. In fact, they could very well be considered almost naturally gifted or geniuses in whatever field they took up. This would of course include piloting mobile suits. New types also have an almost clairvoyant ability or sixth sense with which they're able to see things before they happen. Their focus and spatial awareness are off the charts. New types also detect others of their kind, as shown in Iria's interaction with Gundam's pilot. With their heightened reflexes combined with their sixth sense type ability, new types can appear cognitive in nature. Some have even outright shown psychic abilities like telepathy and telekinesis. Some of the notable new types in the Mobile Suit Gundam universe outside of Iria Sorari are the protagonist and antagonist of the original show, Amuro Ray and Char Aznable. Due to their extraordinary abilities, they're often exploited by their respective militaries regardless of their age. Marvelous verdict. With Gundam, Requiem for Vengeance, Bandai Namco has breathed fresh life into the franchise. The stories of the Universal Century are arguably the most beloved ones for fans, as it contains a heavy dosage of nostalgia. The show does a great job of showing what it was actually like facing a Gundam in battle from an enemy's perspective. The mobile suit is shown as something monstrous, ever stalking its prey to death. The sheer hopelessness of Iria and the rest of the Zaku pilots upon facing it is done masterfully, as it really was that impactful. The Gundam had more firepower in the form of miniaturized beam weapons, superior armor, and movement technology, making it a juggernaut. One can liken it to the terror faced by the Sherman tanks and their crew when faced against a German Tiger tank during World War II. If you came across it, you knew that your time was numbered. It shows that in a war of grand schemes and ideology waged by vested parties for their own gains, normal everyday soldiers were the ones who paid the price. On both sides of the battlefield are human beings with families, loved ones, and homes to go back to. The show captures the horrors of war and gives us an interesting perspective from the invaders' side. We know that it's the Principality that declared the war and dropped a space station bomb on Earth. We also know that they were responsible for numerous atrocities and deaths across the various space colonies and Earth, killing the very people that they claimed to champion, including using chemical weapons to commit genocides. Regardless, through Iria, we're shown that many of these soldiers simply follow orders and oftentimes don't even know to what end. Driven by loss, trauma, and grief, Iria's journey through the battlefield to return home to her son safely really resonated with us. While there is room for improvement, and it is by no means a perfect show, we'd urge you to try it before you knock it. The third animations, especially the beam weapons, were a treat to witness. The show is very satisfactory overall, and Iria is a great protagonist and one of the highlights of the show. We really don't understand how fast time flies when we're doing these videos, and yet again, we're at the end of our time together. Thank you for sticking with us right to the end, as all of this is only possible thanks to your support. If you like this video and want us to cover more Gundam or mecha-related content in general, let us know in the comment below. We hope to see you soon on our next video. Until then, stay safe and stay marvelous.